Hey everybody, it is time for chapter 15 of The Trumpet of the Swan by E.B. White. Here we are, The Trumpet of the Swan. Look how much we've read already. This is everything we've already read. This is how much we have left. So we've done great. We're on chapter 15. I'm going to check the table of contents. The book has 21 chapters. So we are more than halfway through. Yeah, I mean, definitely more. As far as I'm going to go with that math. Ha! All right, before we jump into chapter 15, let's look at some vocabulary words. These are some words we're going to hear in chapter 15 that you might not be familiar with yet, or that I would just love for you to get more familiar with. Celebrity, autograph. I don't know why I wrote that H way over on the other side of the Y, but anyway, celebrity, autograph, bellboys, chambermaids, and watercress. So those are some words we're going to hear in chapter 15. You can pause the video if you want to write them in your notebook so that you can write some definitions of them later and draw some pictures to go with those. But I'm going to go ahead and get us going. Chapter 15 is called A Night at the Ritz. Now, do you guys remember what city is Louis in now? Yeah, he's in Boston, Massachusetts. And he had a really successful first day with the Swan boats. Everybody loved him. The boatman loved him. So now let's see what happens at the Ritz Hotel. When the desk clerk at the Ritz Hotel saw the boatman enter the lobby, followed by an enormous snow-white swan with a black beak, the clerk didn't like it at all. The clerk was a carefully dressed man, very neat, his hair nicely combed. The boatman stepped boldly up to the desk. "I'd like a single room for tonight for my friend here," said the boatman. The clerk shook his head. "No birds," he said. "The Ritz doesn't take birds." Now remember, I told you guys the Ritz is an expensive hotel. It's really fancy. "You take celebrities, don't you?" asked the boatman. "Certainly," replied the clerk. "You'd take Richard Burton or Elizabeth Taylor, wouldn't you, if they wanted to spend the night?" And you guys have to remember, this book was written in 1970, so those were very famous celebrities back then, and celebrity is a word that you're putting in your vocabulary terms. "Okay, of course," replied the clerk. "You'd take Queen Elizabeth, wouldn't you?" "Of course." "Okay," said the boatman. "My friend here is a celebrity. He is a famous musician. He created a sensation at the public garden this afternoon. You must have heard the commotion. He's a trumpeter, Swan, and plays like the great Louis Armstrong." And here is a picture of Louis standing there in the Ritz Hotel lobby with all his things. The clerk gazed suspiciously at Louis. "Has he any luggage?" asked the clerk. "Luggage?" cried the boatman. "Take a look at him. Look at the stuff he's got with him." "Well, I don't know," said the clerk, staring at Louis's possessions. His trumpet, his money bag, his slate, his chalk pencil, his life-saving medal. "A bird is a bird. How do I know he hasn't got lice? Birds often have lice. The Ritz won't take anybody that has lice." "Lice?" roared the boatman. "Did you ever see a cleaner guest in your whole life? Look at him. He's immaculate." Ooh, I could have written that down. Oh well. Immaculate. At this, Louis held up his slate to the clerk. "No lice," he wrote. The clerk stared in amazement. He was beginning to weaken. "Well, I have to be careful," he said to the boatman. "You see, he's a celebrity. How do I know he's famous? You say he's a celebrity. How do I know he's famous? You may just be kidding me about that." Just then, 3 young girls entered the lobby. They were giggling and squealing. One of them pointed at Louis. "Oh, there he is!" she screamed. "There he is! I'll get his autograph!" The girls rushed up to Louis. The first girl held out a pad and pencil. "May I have your autograph?" she asked. Louis took the pencil. Very carefully, he wrote "Louis" on the pad. More squeals and giggles, and the girls rushed away. The clerk watched in silence. "There," said the boatman. "Is he a celebrity or isn't he?" The clerk hesitated. He was beginning to think he would have to give Louis a room. At this point, Louis had an idea. He lifted his trumpet and began to play an old song called There's a small hotel." His tone was beautiful. Guests passing through the lobby stopped to listen. The clerk leaned his elbows on the desk and listened attentively. The man behind the newsstand looked up and listened. People sitting upstairs in the lounge put down their cocktails and listened. The bellboys stopped and listened. For a few minutes, everything stopped in the lobby while Louis played. He charmed everyone who could hear. Chambermaids in the bedrooms paused in their work to listen to the trumpet. It was a moment of sheer magic. As the song came to an end, people who knew the words sang them softly. "When the steeple bell says good night, sleep well, we'll thank the small hotel together." "How about that?" asked the boatman, grinning at the clerk. "Is this Swan a musician or isn't he?" "He plays a sweet trumpet," the clerk said. "But there is one more question that I hesitate to bring up. What about his personal habits? Will he mess the room all up? Actors are bad enough. Musicians are worse. I can't allow a large bird to occupy one of our beds. It might put us out of business. Other guests might complain." "I'll sleep in the bathroom." Excuse me, I have to read that sentence again. "I'll sleep in the bathtub," Louis wrote on his slate. "Will not disturb bed." The clerk shifted his weight from one foot to another. "Who's going to pay the bill?" he asked. "I am," replied the boatman. "I'll be here early tomorrow morning when Louis checks out." The clerk couldn't think of any more reasons for not letting the Swan have her room. "Very well," he said. "Sign the register, please." And he handed Louis a pen and a card. Louis wrote, "Louis the Swan, Upper Red Rock Lake, Montana." He had to write his name and his address where he really lives when he's not at the hotel. The clerk studied it. He seemed satisfied at last. He summoned a bellboy and handed him a key. "Take this gentleman to his room," he ordered. Louis removed his medal, his trumpet, his slate, his chalk pencil, his money bag, and handed them to the bellboy. Together they walked to the elevators, and the boatman said goodbye. "Sleep well, Louis," said the boatman, "and be ready to come to work promptly in the morning." Louis nodded. The elevator door opened. "This way, sir," said the bellboy. They entered the elevator and waited for the door to close. A rich smell of perfume filled the air. Louis stood very still. Then he felt himself rising. The elevator stopped at the 7th floor, and the bellboy led Louis to a room, unlocked the door, and ushered him in. "Here you are, sir," he said. "Would you like a window open?" The bellboy put Louis's luggage down, snapped on a few lights, opened a window, and laid the room key on the dresser. Then he waited. "I guess he wants a tip," thought Louis. So he went to his money bag, loosened the drawstring, and took out $1. "Thank you very much, sir," said the bellboy, taking the $1. He went out and closed the door softly behind him. Louis was alone at last, alone in a room at the Ritz Hotel. Louis had never spent a night alone in a hotel. First he walked round and round, switching lights on and off, examining everything. In the writing desk, he found a few sheets of paper that said, "Ritz-Carlton, Boston." He felt messy and dirty, so he went into the bathroom, climbed in the tub, pulled the shower curtain across, and took a shower bath. It felt good and reminded him of the water fights he used to have with his brothers and sisters. He was careful not to splash any water out on the floor. When he was finished, he stood for a while, admiring the bath mat and preening his feathers. Then he felt hungry. On the wall of the bedroom, he found a button that said, "Waiter." Louis put his beak against the button and pressed hard. In a few minutes, there was a knock at the door, and a waiter entered. He was nicely dressed and tried not to show surprise at finding a Swan in the room. "May I get you something?" he asked. Louis picked up his chalk pencil. 12 watercress sandwiches, please," he wrote on the slate. The waiter thought for a moment. "Are you expecting guests?" he asked. Louis shook his head. "And you want 12 watercress sandwiches?" Louis nodded. "Very good, sir," said the waiter. "Do you wish them to have mayonnaise?" Louis didn't know what mayonnaise tasted like, but he thought fast. He cleaned his slate and wrote, 1 with, 11 without. Let's think about that. How many sandwiches did he want to start with? 12. So he's decided he's going to try something new. He's never had mayonnaise. So he got 1 with mayonnaise. And how many without? 11, right, because 1 and 11 make 12. Cool. The waiter bowed and left the room. Half an hour later, he was back. He rolled a table into the room, placed a huge platter of watercress sandwiches on it, along with a plate, a knife, a fork, a spoon, salt and pepper, a glass of water, a linen napkin nicely folded. There was also a butter dish with several pieces of butter with cracked ice. The waiter arranged everything carefully, then handed Louis a bill to sign. The bill said, 12 watercress sandwiches, $18. Goodness, thought Louis, this is an expensive place. I hope the boatman won't be mad when he sees the supper charge on the bill tomorrow morning. He borrowed a pencil from the waiter and signed the bill, Louis the Swan. The waiter took the bill and stood there waiting. I guess he wants a tip too, thought Louis. So he opened his money bag again, drew out $2 and handed it to the waiter, who thanked him, bowed again, and went away. And here's a picture of Louis giving the waiter his tip. When people bring you things in a hotel, they expect a tip, which is only right because they don't get paid very much, so tips help. Okay, because the Swan has such a long neck, the table was just the right height for Louis. He didn't need a chair. He ate his supper standing up. He tried the sandwich that had mayonnaise on it and decided that he did not like mayonnaise. Then he carefully pulled each sandwich apart. All he really wanted was the watercress. That's one of your vocabulary words this week. He piled the slices of bread in 2 neat piles, scooped the watercress onto his plate, and had a nice supper. He did not touch the butter. When he was thirsty, instead of drinking from the glass of water, he walked into the bathroom, drew a basin of cold water, and drank that. Then he took his napkin, wiped his beak, and pushed the table out of the way, and he felt much better. To be alone in a hotel room gives a person a cozy feeling and a feeling of importance. Louis felt great, but soon he began to feel rather lonely too. He thought of Sam Beaver. He thought of Camp Kookooskoos. He thought of his father and mother and sisters and brothers back home in Montana. He thought of Serena, the swan that he loved, and he wondered how she was. Then the words of the song he had played in the lobby came to him. There's a small hotel with a wishing well. I wish that we were there together. How wonderful it would be, he thought, if Serena could be here at the Ritz to enjoy the hotel with him. The waiter had left an evening paper on a table. Louis glanced at the front page. To his amazement, he saw a picture of himself on the lake in the public garden with the Swan boat, and a big headline said, Boston goes wild over the trumpet of the Swan. The news story began. There's a new bird in town. His name is Louis. He is a trumpeter swan that really plays the trumpet. Incredible though it may seem, this rare and beautiful water bird has accepted employment with the Swan Boat Management in the public garden and is entertaining boat riders with his smooth trumpet. Crowds gathered at the lake this afternoon after his arrival, and the sweet notes of his horn were heard in many parts of Boston. Louis read the article to the end and then tore it out of the paper. Sam Beaver ought to know about this, he thought. From the writing desk in his room, Louis took a pen and a sheet of paper, and this is what he wrote. Dear Sam, I am spending the night at the Ritz in fashionable surroundings. You were right about Boston. It is very pleasant. I was able to find work as soon as I arrived. I am associated with the Swan Boat at a salary of $100 a week. You may be interested in the enclosed clipping from today's paper. If all goes well, I'll soon have enough money to pay my father's debt to the music store, and then I will own the trumpet free and clear, and will hope that by blowing it passionately, I will be able to make a favorable impression on the young female I am in love with. Then everybody will be happy. My father's honor will be restored, the music shop and billings will be repaid, and I can have a wife. I hope you are well. I miss you. A hotel room, even though it has every convenience, can be a lonely place. Your friend, Louis. Louis addressed an envelope to Sam, folded the letter, fitted the newspaper clipping in, and found a 6-cent stamp in his money bag. He sealed the envelope, pasted the stamp on, and dropped the letter in the mail chute outside the door of his room. Now I'll go to sleep, he thought. He went into the bathroom, used the toilet, then drew a full tub of cold water in the bathtub. He couldn't get Serena out of his mind. How wonderful it would be if only she were here. Before settling down for the night, he picked up his trumpet and played the song he had composed for her while he was in Ontario. Oh, ever in the greening spring, by bank and bough retiring, for love I shall be sorrowing, and swans of my desiring. He tried to play softly, but in a minute the phone rang in his room. Louis lifted the receiver and put it to his ear. I'm sorry, sir, a voice said, but I'll have to ask you not to make so much noise. The Ritz does not allow its guests to play brass instruments in the rooms. Louis hung up the phone and put his trumpet away. Then he turned out the lights, climbed into the tub, curved his long neck around, rested his head on his back, tucked his bill under his wing, and lay there floating on the water, his head cradled softly in his feathers. Soon he was asleep, dreaming of little lakes in the north in the springtime, and dreaming of Serena, his true love. Well, that was kind of a long chapter. It felt kind of long, huh? Chapter 16 is called Philadelphia. So Louis is in Boston right now. So if you want to do a little geography work, you could pull out a map and remember he's been to Montana, he's been to Canada, Ontario specifically is where the camp was. He's in Boston right now, and now the next chapter is called Philadelphia. So you're going to have to see where that is. I'll see you next time. Thanks for reading with me today.